Welcome to Lifebook Wanderers, Travel and Curiosity this month we're up to. And thank you, Talia, for joining me. It's great to be here and actually be online. Let's hope it holds out for us for another session. So for this session, the idea was about curiosity for intellectual life was inspired by a quote from the book on Leonardo da Vinci by Walter Isaacson. Alex shared this in one of the newsletters. Being curious about everything not only makes you more creative, it enriches your life. And that's an incredibly good reminder about the power of curiosity. So how essential is this as part of intellectual life? And I'm also curious around us. So as we experience, for me, I'm Maddie Lovett. I'm currently in Laos, doing a Southeast Asia trip. We're here all up in Southeast Asia, and that's part of a longer, up to 6 months that we're traveling, doing a bit of long-term traveling and seeing different parts of the world. That's myself and my husband, which yeah, so we're having a great time. We were considering doing more long-term travel and even spending 2 or 3 years, mostly out of our home country of New Zealand. But it's quite possible that when we go back later this year, we may get a little bit more set in our lives and our relationship. So curiosity, approaching each new place and new people. And I also like to apply curiosity to my own thoughts and feelings, my responses and my reactions. When I'm feeling negative, which happens more often than I want it to, and be curious about what's driving that, what's driving the negativity. Is it lack of sleep? Is it uncertainty about the people that are around? Is it discomfort in the environment? Or is it just me being a little bit bitchy for some reason? And that happens. And once you acknowledge that, it's easier to laugh and push past it and look at the world with a more open attitude. Like being crammed on a train and then having a conversation with somebody sitting next to you. It makes it so much better. So one of the life notes for this month is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And he says, our comforting conviction that the world makes sense rests on a secure foundation, our almost unlimited ability to ignore our own ignorance. And I will pop that in the chat because I haven't done slides for this event. So I'll pop that in the slides so in the chat so that you can see that and perhaps save it if you feel it's a very worthwhile quote. So I'll read that again. Our comforting conviction that the world makes sense rests on a secure foundation, our almost unlimited ability to ignore our own ignorance. And I really find that traveling brings that to the fore in a great way because we're dealing with different cultures, people, different religions, different methods and systems and ways of doing things, and trying to imagine that we know everything and know how to do stuff and know how things should run and why are they not being run that way is a surefire way to not enjoy the travel. So I found that, yeah, a really good quote to remind me that I know so little. And when I think I know stuff, suddenly I get a reminder that I don't know it. So the more we learn, the more we realize how little we know. How many times can we get caught or almost caught by the same trap? For instance, e-visas. You get an e-visa, visas on arrival, all those different things that vary not only for each country, but perhaps for each port of that country, each way you arrive. We think, oh yeah, this is a system, this will be the same as the system last time. No way, it's going to be different. And one thing, particularly if in New Zealand, we talk about just use common sense. If people use common sense, it'll be fine. Common sense is the answer to trust people to use their common sense. Well, sense and common sense are actually very different for different cultures. They have a different idea of what common sense is. And realizing and being open to that and accepting that somebody else is coming at this point, this system, this way that something should be done from a completely different angle to ours, at least allows us to accept, okay, I need to try and get a handle on where they're coming from. What makes sense to me or us doesn't always make sense to others. And I do accept that there often will be factors that I don't know about, hence my ignorance. We travelled by train this morning, and a review was describing the new Lao China railway stations as first world structures let down by third world mentalities, which I totally agreed with. But it's a little harsh, perhaps. They do deal with people like sheep, but that perhaps is the best method of making their systems work. There are probably a lot of aspects too why that building is the way it is, why their systems and their processes annoyed me. But it's kind of like, well, this is how it is. Sometimes you just need to accept that's the way it is. We were a little bit, we had a few moments of panic because we'd got somebody to book our tickets for us. And although we were going to Luang Prabang, which is one of the main cities in Laos, the train destination was only listed as Botan, which was further south, not north where we wanted to go. So we had a few moments of panic and then found I've actually got a go-to resource for world travel on trains. It's called The Man in Seat 61. And he and the people that have added to his site just give you everything you want to know about trains around the world, which is great. And I checked that and I see we're on K12, yes, and these are the times. And I see there's the route, it loops around and it does go to where we expect it to be going. So we are on the right train. So the only seats available when we booked the day before were hard seats, and we were kind of like, "What's hard? You know, is it a wooden plank? Is it what's it like? Is it a wagon?" But no, it turns out they were upright, lightly padded, in the local train. Uh, the funny thing was, we'd a couple of days earlier we'd been on the high-speed train, and we thought, wow, that's going to be something like, you know, these brand new high-speed China-made trains are going to be a bit like the bullet train in Japan. It's kind of like, this isn't going that fast. uh, so it turns out it's maybe 30% faster than the local train on the high-speed trains. The high-speed train takes an hour to get there, and it's closer to an hour and a half on the local train. And we can all do an hour and a half in a um, not too luxurious train. And that was fine. It was packed with people. It was packed with luggage. That was pretty awkward finding somewhere for the luggage. And they had some very strict rules about how you put your luggage in and what you're allowed to do and not do on the train. But that's fine. It's it was survived. And the lovely thing was the people around were really helpful. They've got a really random seat numbering process, which meant Greg and I were seat apart. Uh, but the people near me helped me with my luggage. They moved it, put it in one place, and then they said, "Oh, we can put it under the seat," and moved it around because there was no room in the overhead um, things. So it was fine. You know, I got was helped by people. There was a very cute little girl opposite who kept our attention and people to talk to. So it was great. So every time we have something like that, it's about staying alert for the fact that it'll be same, but different. Yeah, things will change. We have to be really aware of how the system is working and making sure, checking to ensure we know where we're going to get to, and if we have information, using that information. It's changed country to country, town to town, a different train, different bus companies. Remember that you're ignorant and ask people. Some of them might speak English, some of them might not, but talking to people really does help. So I'm learning to really save my mental energy for these things by not spending hours and hours online finding my transport and communication and accommodation. Sometimes it's easier and only a little bit more expensive to book with an agency in town, like we did for this particular train trip. They included a hotel pickup. It may have paid a bit more. Good thing we were ready early. It picked us up 20 minutes earlier than they said they were going to, but that's fine. Sometimes just getting a little bit of help, getting things done, and it may or may not be perfect, but at least it's done and you're not spending hours and hours on that. The other thing is learning to listen to intuition and not allowing rush mode to kick in. If your ride arrives early, still make sure you have everything, make sure everything's packed where it should be, and carry on. These are our travel systems is always to do an idiot check. It's always to pack things the same way, to pack things pretty much once you get the wrinkles ironed out in the same places, so we know we've got them and can check. Are my systems fully efficient yet? Not at all, but I have them and I'm learning more each time. So do you have any travel systems that you could share? Any things you've learned when you go with your keeping information in a good place?
So, what I did, I've got a list now of things that I always have to pack and I keep it. So, like chargers, stuff like that. So, I've got a list that I used to make every time, and now I've got a standard list that I keep. So, I can just run through it and see, like moisturizer, a hairbrush, charger. The other day, when I went away just for a weekend, I forgot to look at my list and I forgot to take a hairbrush with me. But I mean, it's not the end of the world. But
That's so you remembered the importance of having that list and the value of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And the other thing is, I do have a system when I pack and unpack. So, and then I pack things so very systematically and I check thoroughly before I leave. Because I don't like leaving things behind, especially chargers are so easy to leave behind.
Yes. Yeah.
So check under the
And it's one
blankets.
thing if you've left it at home and need to buy one. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes, checking your hotel for those things. Yeah.
yeah.
Great.
So what's
So
an
that's
idiot check,
in your
maybe?
an idiot check is just, did I put something somewhere silly? Did I check under the blanket on the bed, or under the pillow, or did I forget to put my AirPods back where they go? Yeah. So
Yeah,
that the idiot check is to do it once and do it again. Yeah.
exactly right.
Yes.
Otherwise, I mean, when I was traveling last time in Portugal, when I was coming to meet you, I was in a hurry and I jumped out the taxi and I left my one nice jumper in the car. So now I know every time I get out of the cab, I have to check. And like I said,
Yes.
not to rush, because when you rush,
Mm,
that's when you leave things behind.
yeah. Yes. That's yes. Great. All right. Okay. So talking of systems, the next quote I have here is, "No battle was ever won according to plan, but no battle was ever won without one," from General Eisenhower. And that's our planning and systems. And it's a case of however much we plan, the planning is a good thing, but allowing for things to change. I define myself as a lifebook wanderer, which could imply aimlessness. But for me, it simply means an openness to shift gears at a moment's notice if that works, if that's an option or an ideal thing. Even in the last week, couple of weeks, our plans have changed. We had a draft plan of which direction we were going to travel in Southeast Asia. As new information comes to light, sometimes changing that is essential, and that's what we did. We've changed things around for that. It is funny thinking that 10 or 15 years ago, we would tend to book, plan a holiday 11 months out for international travel. And, you know, 2 days ago, we booked international flights for less than 2 months out. We were planning a trip to Egypt in April to go from Kuala Lumpur to Egypt. We've actually looked at a whole lot of information and different flight options and things. And now we're going to Istanbul in April, and we won't get to Egypt until till July. So and it was really good to be able to, make those, put those plans in place, shift them around, look at the things, look at the information, and right, make a decision. And now we've booked that flight, yeah, 2 months out, less than 2 months out. So how do you manage your travel planning? Um, do you sometimes book short notice? Do you book well ahead? Uh, do you I know for some people they love to have a really good system and have all their accommodation booked, all their transport, land transport, and transport between places booked. Uh, and and I know that what works for one doesn't always work for another. So yeah, do you have some specifics as how you usually book flights and things?
Yeah, so obviously, if I know well in advance, like we're going to a conference or something, then I can book it in advance. But if it's a more complex trip and it depends on different variables and whether I can go or not, then I leave it for a little later. Obviously, the later you leave it, the more you pay. So I try not to leave it too late. The other thing is, it depends on the time of season when you're traveling. Like if you're going peak season, then you've got to book your accommodation in advance. What I usually do is I find a cancellation that I can
That's actually
uh, policy, I book a room that I can cancel. Gives me flexibility because if you book it well in advance, you have to when you're going peak season, you have to book well in advance. But then you also want that flexibility if something goes wrong. Like I say, you don't decide not to go to one place. Like last time when I was meant to go from Portugal to Rome. I had to fly back home for a family emergency. So, because I had a room that I could cancel, I cancelled my room. I cancelled my train tickets because I could. So, that's one thing that I always do. I make sure there's a cancellation policy and I put it in my diary so I can know all in my phone diary. Yeah, so I like to have that flexibility for myself. Obviously, sometimes you pay a bit more for that flexibility. But like again, I said, it depends on the time of year that you're traveling. Although since COVID, I've discovered that everywhere's busy. It's not like before.
mm.
Most times are
Yes,
busy.
yes, but I think that it's like you say, when you're traveling peak season is far more that you really do need to book ahead for accommodation because peak season it will be challenging to try and get something close by, and definitely having that option of being able to cancel. And for me, it's unless I'm booking the day or two ahead, I do prefer that option as well, so that if something better comes up, or you decide to go somewhere different, that there is that option. So, yeah, I think booking, yeah, using those no cancellation fee options is really, really helpful.
What also happened
Yeah.
when we went to the UK and we wanted to travel around, but we didn't know how long we wanted to stay in the country. So we hired a car and then look for a place in the cart, go onto TripAdvisor or whatever, and look for an Airbnb. And then sometimes you couldn't find a place. So you'd have to, like I said, change plans. We wanted to stay at Oxford. We ended up staying in Stratford-on-Avon. So you've got to be flexible if you're going to be doing that kind of thing. If you want to wing it.
Yes. Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. And having more knowledge and having done that research ahead of time can help too. I don't always do the research ahead of time. Sometimes I've been, okay, what we want to see next week sometimes is what comes up for me. But having done that research and sometimes getting that knowledge ahead of time or knowing where to find that information makes it so much easier to to navigate when things do change or when you can't get the accommodation in Oxford. So
I think that's
yeah.
vital. I think you would know where to look now, which apps and where to go to for last minute accommodation. Maybe I can get some tips from you.
Yeah. I think we tend to use, you know, our main booking apps we tend to use, and we'll offer, not always, but usually check all three: booking.com. Hotels.com doesn't have as many options, and Agoda are very good for Southeast Asia. Uh, but sometimes, you know, yeah, you can do, if you've heard about a particular place to stay, you can search directly for that place, um, and see if you can book with them directly, which is often an option too, which is good. Yes. Okay, for the last life note, I still haven't read this book, but I actually really want to. Steal Like an Artist, Austin Kleon, and I've heard of this, and I'd really like to read this one. But it's Justin Butcher's did the life note for it just recently, and his favorite quote from the book is, "Your brain gets too comfortable in your everyday surroundings. You need to make it uncomfortable. You need to spend some time in another land where people do things differently to you. Travel makes the world look new, and when the world looks new, our brains work harder." And that's a really good reminder for me about the value of travel. Doesn't mean you have to be traveling all the time. um, that's exhausting. And uh, but it simply means it really does help you get out of your head and out of your regular comfort zone by going to a different country, different environment, and being around different people. And I just love that idea and that fact of that. Yes, I've very much discovered that um, travel does make my brain work harder, and it's a good thing. I'm gonna pop this in the chat for you, and I will also pop this when I sort the recording. I will put it. Yeah, here we go. I will put it underneath the recording in the body of the event. So yeah, I really do feel this is true. And I discovered this. So last year we traveled for 4 months, from July through to November. And coming back to New Zealand was very much, I looked at my own environment with a different light. I looked at a lot of positives. Uh, I struggled a little bit with going back to our hometown and seeing, having come back with some new ideas, new thoughts, new experiences, having met a lot of different people. I struggled with that, but it did make me more aware of the great things about home, the ruts that people can be in when they haven't traveled or have or don't keep their minds active with intellectual pursuits and curiosity, and spending time talking to people who don't come from the same background. And it's very easy to get stuck when you spend time in the same environment. So the quote again from Austin Kleon: "Your brain gets too comfortable in your everyday surroundings. You need to make it uncomfortable. You need to spend some time in another land where people do things differently to you. Travel makes the world look new, and well, when the world looks new, our brains work harder. And sometimes that can be travel within your own country. It can be getting really just about getting out of your comfort zone and applying a little bit of curiosity to the world. Does that bring up any ideas for you or thoughts for you, Talia, before we finish for the
Well,
session?
just thinking back to Portugal when I got there, I was traveling by myself and I got to the train station and there were no signs because I got there really early in the morning and not many people speak English and it does challenge you. I didn't know where to go. There weren't, it wasn't like Australia where everything's properly, you know, with signs and everything. And yeah, it took me a while, but I finally worked my way to the right place to catch the train.
Yeah.
And then, I couldn't buy a coffee, for example, because they only take cash and stuff like that. So it does challenge you, I remember maybe next time I'll carry a bit of the local, like euros on me or something, So it
Yes.
makes you, it equips you better for the next trip. Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah.
It does definitely challenge you. It's quite daunting when you're going to a new country and you can't speak the language. So,
Mm. Yes, it certainly is. And that's why one of our wee catchphrases that Greg keeps reminding me about traveling in Southeast Asia is welcome to not Singapore, because I encourage people to go to Singapore as a step along the way if you're, especially if you're new to traveling, because Singapore is easy. You get that mix of cultures, all of that other stuff going on, but people speak English. The MRT system's really easy to negotiate. It's clean, you're safe, and as long as you get your Singapore dollars, or you can use your card so many places, it's easy.
mm,
And it's that real, like you experienced in Portugal, welcome to not Singapore. Most places around the world are not as easy to travel in as for us English speakers we find in Australia, New Zealand, the UK. And Singapore fits into that with that added multiculturalness. And I think that's a really good, yeah, place to start if you want to open your mind and your curiosity and stretch yourself with travel. But
great
thank you for
idea.
attending today, Talia. I've really appreciated
Thank
having you on the call. And
It was great
yeah, I
coordinating.
hope you
Thank
can
you.
make it along. I don't, yeah, thank you. So next month we will talk about life. Yes, it's
Yes.
emotional life next month. Yes.